Good morning, everybody. It's Soho Parish. It's lovely to be doing an assembly for you today, and I'm doing something that Year 5 and 6 know quite a lot about because they studied it earlier this year, and that's the Windrush, because today is Windrush Day. And Windrush Day celebrates a time in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and 70s when a lot of people, 550,000 people, travelled from places in like the Caribbean to Britain to help rebuild the country after the Second World War. And these people are known as the Windrush generation because, as you can see here, the name of the boat that they travelled on was called the Empire Windrush. Now, Britain is part of something called the Commonwealth, which basically is a collection or a group of countries all over the world who at some point have been ruled by Britain. And many of these countries fought with Britain in the Second World War. And after the war, because lots of men had died fighting, there were lots of jobs that needed filling. So what Britain did was it put an advertisement, which you can see on the screen, into newspapers in countries in the Commonwealth, mainly in the Caribbean, advertising for people to come to Britain. So as you can see here, it says passenger opportunity to United Kingdom on the Empire Windrush sailing around the 23rd of May. So they knew it'd be in May, but they weren't exactly sure when. And you can see the prices there on the side. So for cabin class, it was £48. Now, that's not £48 in today's money, it's £48 in old money, which in today's money is actually about £1,500. So it was not cheap. And even to go just on the deck, so to not have a bedroom, was £28, which is about £700 or £800 in today's money. But people really, really wanted to come to Britain because they believed that they could have a better life. And so they would often sell their belongings so that they could buy a ticket. We celebrate Windrush Day on the 22nd of June every year because that's the date that the first Empire Windrush arrived in the UK. So it came to a place called Tilbury Docks in Essex, which is just outside London. So this is the day that everybody arrived and they could start their new life in Britain, or that's what they thought, because actually when a lot of people arrived, they didn't have anywhere to live. So because of the Second World War, a lot of the accommodation, a lot of the houses had been bombed. So actually around 200 of those first passengers on that first boat ended up living for weeks and months here in Clapham South Tube Station. That's the picture on your screen at the moment. And as you can see, there's bunk beds and you can even see the curve of the tube station wall. So can you imagine that for a moment? Eating, living, sleeping in a tube station. And actually, lots of the passengers decided to call South London home. And now in places like Brixton, Lambeth, Hackney, there are amazing, vibrant Black communities. And a lot of the people that live there are descendants from the people who first came over on the Windrush. Now, when people decided to come over on the Windrush, they thought it was because Britain was a very accepting place and that they accepted people and it didn't matter about the colour of their skin. But sadly, when a lot of people came to Britain in the 1940s and 50s and even 60s, and they faced a lot of racism. And we know from Louise's fantastic assembly that racism means to be unkind to someone because of the colour of your skin. And unfortunately, what's still very sad is that even today, even as recently as 2 years ago, a lot of people who are part of the Windrush generation or their families have been told that they're not real British citizens, that they don't deserve to live here. And they're being threatened to have to move back to the Caribbean, even if they've lived here their whole lives. So that's why it's really important that we are educating ourselves and learning about racism, because what we have to remember is the Windrush generation, those people that came over from the Caribbean after the Second World War, are the people who helped to rebuild Britain. They did really important jobs like postmen, train drivers, mechanics, cleaners. And as it says there, the Windrush generation helped to rebuild Britain. They helped Britain grow back in strength after the war. And what's really interesting is actually a lot of the people on the Windrush came to work in the very first NHS. So the NHS was formed in 1948. And a lot of the people who are part of the Windrush generation worked the very first jobs in the NHS. So they were things like porters, janitors, even nurses. And still today, we can find descendants, so family members of people who are on the original Windrush who are working in the NHS. And as we know, the NHS at the moment is working tirelessly against coronavirus to ensure that we're all safe and that we're all healthy. And so that just shows you how important these people are, because they went into the NHS and we wouldn't have it without them. So if you would like to learn more about the Windrush generation, there is a PowerPoint and some activities in your home learning folders on the Google Drive. And I've tried to make sure there's lots of different things to do. You could do cooking, some colouring, you could do some artwork, make some boats, write some stories. And it's just a really lovely way for us to celebrate this really important day and remember those people who made a difference in our country. And in some boroughs in London, what they're doing is they're singing a song together, and it's by this man, Desmond Dekker. And I would like us to listen to this song as a way at the end of our assembly. So feel free to sing along. Thank you for listening. Bye. You can get it if you really want, but you must try and try. You succeed at last. Persecution